What if you could get a glimpse of the near future? Not through a crystal ball or anything like that, but something, well, something a lot more ordinary, a daily newspaper. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do here. We are about to break down the front page from a single day just a couple of years from now.
Okay, so let's dive right in. The date is Friday, February 20, 2026. At first glance, it looks like just another day, right? But as we're about to see, the headlines from this particular Friday signal that some really profound changes are in the works.
And this really brings us to the big question we're exploring. What can one day's news actually tell us about the state of the world? Well, it turns out when you start connecting the dots between just a few key stories, a surprisingly clear picture starts to take shape.
All right, let's kick things off with our first big story. This one is about a massive symbolic shift in the American economy. A new corporate king has officially been crowned. We're talking about a real battle of the titans here. In one corner, you've got Walmart, the 63-year-old behemoth. I mean, the absolute definition of brick-and-mortar power. For almost 20 years, they were the top dog, the country's largest company by revenue. And in the other corner, Amazon, the 31-year-old digital empire that famously got its start in a garage.
And here it is, the tipping point. The paper is reporting that Amazon's annual revenue has just crept past Walmart's. Now look, it's a super narrow margin, but the symbolic weight of this, it's absolutely massive. A digital-first model has officially unseated the undisputed king of 20th century retail.
This quote from a former Walmart US CEO just nails the power shift. He says Walmart went from driving the bus to riding the bus. Think about that. For decades, Walmart set the rules, and everyone else, including Amazon, had to react. Now, those roles have completely flipped. Okay, let's shift gears to our next story, and you'll start to see a broader theme of change emerging. This one's about a cultural retreat, and it shows just how fast corporate America can pivot on some really major social issues.
So to really get what a big deal this is, you have to look back just 1 year before our newspaper was printed. Back in 2025, about half of all S&P 500 companies had official DEI policies that guided how they recruited new board directors. It was pretty much standard practice.
But then you fast forward just 1 year to the date on our paper, and wow, the change is staggering. That number has plummeted from 50% all the way down to just 14%. That is an incredibly rapid and decisive reversal by corporate America.
So what on earth happened? Well, the article points to a few big things happening all at once. You had huge influential investors like BlackRock and Goldman Sachs backing away from their diversity targets. You had a key NASDAQ rule get struck down in court. And on top of all that, pressure from anti-DEI activists was getting more and more intense. It was basically a perfect storm. All right, our third story from this front page pulls us into this fascinating blend of power, politics, and technology. It reveals these new, kind of unconventional centers of influence that are starting to challenge the old guard.
The setting is President Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. But hold on, this is not your typical political fundraiser. Nope. This is a summit on the future of finance and tech, and it's being hosted by a crypto company that has the president's backing. I mean, you can literally see the lines between business and state getting blurrier and blurrier.
And just get a load of who's in the room. You've got the recently pardoned founder of the crypto giant Binance, and he's mingling with the CEO of Goldman Sachs and the president of the New York Stock Exchange. Then you toss in a celebrity investor from Shark Tank and the president's sons, and you have this incredible mashup of Wall Street, crypto, celebrity, and politics all under one roof.
And this quote from Eric Trump, it really says it all. He's directly comparing this event to Davos, the traditional summit for the global elite. He's framing this as the counter summit, a new power center that's defining itself against the old one, with, as he puts it, less wokeness.
So we've looked at 3 pretty different stories: a new king of commerce, a cultural U-turn in the boardroom, and a new kind of power summit. So what does it all mean when you step back and connect the dots?
The big picture that's coming into focus from this one single day in 2026 is a world in major disruption. Established hierarchies like Walmart's reign over retail, they're crumbling. Cultural norms like corporate DEI policies are being renegotiated at lightning speed. And these new alternative power structures, they're popping up and grabbing more and more influence.
And of course, these huge shifts aren't happening in a vacuum.
You look elsewhere on the front page and you see stories about tense international negotiations. It's a really stark reminder that while things are churning at home, global friction is still a constant, simmering feature of this world.
The economic pressure is also clearly ratcheting up. The paper reports the U.S. goods trade deficit has hit a new record, which signals some serious stress under the hood of the global economy. This isn't just a boring number. It points to fundamental changes in who's making what and who's buying what.
And these tensions, they're not just contained in boardrooms or at exclusive summits. The front page also shows social friction at every level, from so-called culture wars breaking out at the opera to protests spilling out into the streets. It's just clear that disruption is the word of the day, and it's touching every single part of life.
You know, at the end of the day, the point of this whole exercise isn't to predict one specific future, but to practice seeing the patterns of disruption that are all around us. Which leaves us with one last thought. If these are the stories from just a single day in 2026, what clues is today's news giving us about the world we're all creating right here, right now?